Today, we're getting under the hood of women's health with Lizzie, a college student at NYU studying social work and environmental studies. She loves to cook and spend time with her friends. Lizzie will get under the hood of mental health.
It mostly became prevalent when I was around 11 or 12, whatever age I was starting middle school. I don't remember exactly. But I had been struggling with anxiety since I was a kid. I was pretty shy. And my parents were used to it because my dad has pretty severe anxiety, so they kind of knew the symptoms and signs and everything. And then definitely once I hit middle school, that's when my skin picking started to get worse, which is one of my symptoms from OCD, which obviously I didn't know at the time. But obviously I hit puberty, I was in middle school, and because I was having acne, I had more to pick at, so that was when it became super prevalent. I started therapy around seventh grade, I believe. My dad was in therapy and he found it super helpful for his anxiety. So I started talking to a therapist just about my generalized anxiety, you know, raising my hand in class and doing presentations at school. I had a hard time making friends. And that was very helpful for me. I was diagnosed with anxiety. And then I went to therapy. I kind of bounced around therapists for a couple years and then stopped around like freshman, sophomore year of high school because that was when I was gained a lot more confidence, honestly. And then it wasn't until after my freshman year of college last summer was when I lived with my friend who started to pick up on some of my habits that I have that are related to OCD, which I was not aware of at the time. But she kind of said to me, like, hey, Liz, like, I used to do these things too, and I know they kind of get in the way of your day to day, and you can get help for them. And so that was really eye-opening to me. And that was when I decided to go back to therapy, and I was able to talk to my therapist and tell her that I have this friend with OCD. And she said some of the symptoms that I have are similar to things that she would do too. And then I was able to get diagnosed with OCD about 6 months ago. Yeah, it was definitely hard growing up just because um obviously I had acne, so that made me super insecure. And then the fact that I also had a problem with picking at my skin. So everybody would tell me like my mom definitely she tried very hard to help me. She would take me to a lot of dermatologists, which obviously I really appreciate her for, but the problem was not with my skin. So that's why it just wasn't really a solution. So I would feel really bad because they'd just be like, oh, like you just have to stop picking at your skin and you won't have acne. And I obviously didn't have the ability to verbalize that I can't stop picking at my skin. Like if I could, I would have by now. So I think it was just very frustrating for a long time. Until obviously with my friend, it was very validating to talk about it with her and to not feel so weird and like it was my fault was very it was felt really good. I felt a lot of relief and validation when I got the diagnosis. Because it was just kind of nice to be able to talk to my family and talk to my friends rather than being like, oh, like I have these habits that I can't really explain and I don't know why they do them, even though I don't want to be doing them, but I can just be like, oh, I have OCD, and people are able to kind of know what that is or at least look it up and have there is obviously still a stigma around mental health, but I feel like it's definitely changing. So it's kind of nice to be able to talk about it. Part of therapy was naming my OCD, and we named him Jerry because no offense to all of the Jerrys out there, I don't personally know any Jerrys, so that was why I picked that name. But it's nice to be able to talk about my struggles and the things that I do that I don't enjoy, and I can be like, oh, that's Jerry. Like, that's not me. It's not my fault. I'm blaming Jerry. And it kind of lifts a lot of the burden and guilt that I feel when my OCD gets in the way of me being able to do things and feel good about myself. So that's been really nice. It was amazing how many conversations it opened up within my family. It was really funny because I would talk to my grandma about, and we always thought that my grandma had anxiety, but I talked to her about how I would struggle a lot in the mornings with picking up at my face. And she was like, "Oh yeah, every morning I have to pick at my face too, and then I have to vacuum and do this and this." And I'm like, "Harry, you're like 78. Like there's your floor isn't dirty. I don't know why you're vacuuming every day." Like it was kind of eye-opening to be able to have that kind of conversation of like not feeling alone and like because OCD is a like it's usually an inherited mental health disorder. So we kind of unofficially diagnosed Harry with OCD as well, but it was just very I feel like it just felt so freeing to be able to talk about it in a way that I just did not have the words for. With OCD, because it's an anxiety-based disorder, what I really struggle with is I'll have things that I'm worried about or I'm anxious about, and then it usually triggers more of my symptoms, like picking at my skin, or one thing that I would do is like I would obsessively make to-do lists to give me a sort of sense of control, because that's mostly what OCD is like you have things that you're anxious about, and your brain sort of, or Jerry, tells me like, oh, if you make a really detailed to-do list, everything will be okay. Like you just have to be able to do everything in this exact order and everything will be fine. But the problem with that is life doesn't work that way. So if I wasn't able to do the things that Jerry was telling me to make me feel safe, then it kind of felt like I was spiraling. And so the problem is like I was finding all of these habits that were giving a short sense of relief, but they were not dependable senses of relief. So that's what I've been working with my therapist a lot to find coping mechanisms that are things that I can do that I can like definitely depend on. Like it's not things that Jerry is telling me to do, like pick at my skin. So I've found journaling super helpful. I really love to journal. Like even I'll tell all my friends to do it, like whether it's like something I'm really excited about or something I'm really sad about. I feel like it can be really therapeutic. And even just to look back on in the future, I feel like it's really nice. I'd also say I do yoga from YouTube videos, which is really nice because it's free. So I can really do it. I just need like the space to be able to like stand up and lay down and have my laptop. And that's really all I need to be able to do like a quick 15-20 minute, just something to relax, which is really nice. So those I would say are like the two things that I depend on pretty much. Obviously, first and foremost, I talk to my therapist, which is super helpful, but I know that's not an option for a lot of people. So even just speaking to your friends or your family, people you feel safe with to be able to share things that you're stressed about or sad about or really have I feel like it's just really therapeutic to even just talk through like problems you might have. Sometimes you just need someone to be able to listen to you, whether even if it's not for advice. Um, I would say going to the gym is super helpful for me just to have a outlet for my kind of anxious energy. I would say that's super helpful. And then I also do not have any social media other than, well, that's a little bit of a lie. I do have Snapchat, but I don't really count it because I just think it's silly. I don't really use it for anything. Um, but I think not having social media is super helpful for me because I do love the idea of being connected with people that I can't typically be connected with, but honestly, I feel like the trade-offs for it end up harming me a lot more than helping me to be able to connect with people. Like I think I just end up, like doom scrolling. That was a big problem for me. Just spending more time on it than I really want to. So I've found an outlet in just like calling my friends or sending them a text and being like, "Hey, how are you? What are you up to today?" Like things like that, where you can be in contact with people and you don't need social media to be able to do that. So I found that as a much better outlet for me. So yeah, I kind of jumped around therapists. I was having a hard time finding one that I connected with, which I think is super important to be able to feel comfortable, like telling them very personal things and everything. But I was really lucky that my brother's therapist, he lives in Atlanta, was able to recommend me someone in New York. Um, and we get along super well, which is really nice. And it's nice to have someone that's kind of disconnected from my life, but to be able to get advice and just be able to rant and just feel validated in the way that I feel. And then through my school, I was able to get a psychiatrist who helped me get on medication, which has also been really life-changing for me. I think before medication, something that I really struggled with was with my anxiety, everything felt very urgent. So that would make things very hard for me to try and figure out like what to do. And also having the issue of, as a logical side of my brain, I can be like, this assignment really isn't that urgent. Like I have a whole week to do it, whatever. But then my OCD and anxiety would be like, no, you have to do it right now. Like it has to be done immediately. And I just felt so overwhelmed all the time. Like it was exhausting. And then once I started medication, it's like I have the same thoughts. It's not like they necessarily went away, but everything is a little bit quieter, which has been really nice. I guess what I really want to say is that you're not alone, in the ways that you feel or, the struggles that you might have. I think it's really important to talk about it because that's also a really good way to get rid of some of the stigma that can be held around mental health. Because if people talked about it more, then I feel like we'd all start to realize that maybe we all struggle with a lot of similar things, and there wouldn't be so much stigma around it. And that's also a really good way to be able to get help because if you feel bad, there doesn't have to stay that way. Like there are options like therapy or even just having someone to talk about, just like a friend that can help you work through things that you're stressed with or even maybe medication is an option, like something like that. Just because you are having a hard time doesn't mean it has to stay that way, and there are a lot of options.